Around that time, my phone calls kept up and I started to suspect that I knew who it was. I could hear a Denver radio station in the background of one call. There were only 3 people that would call me from Denver and not speak. My mother, Billy, and Linda. Mom didn't listen to the radio, so that left Billy and Linda. I told Mike I was getting calls from one of them, and he asked if I was sure. I recognized the station from Denver in the background, I told him. I didn't listen to it all that often, but I recognized the station identification they used. One of them is calling me, breathing in my ear and then hanging up. He nodded. What are you gonna do? He asked. Not sure, I admitted. Maybe nothing, maybe call them out. How they found me at work, I don't know. I don't know about work, but Mom knows our home number. She might have given it to them, or they might have gotten it from the caller ID. I sighed. Well, I'm gonna be leaving my job anyway, I told him. They're screwing around with cutbacks and talking about pushing it down to part-time, so they don't have to pay benefits. What are you gonna do? He asked, surprised that I was having trouble at work. I've started looking for something else, I told him. I told them that if they were gonna treat me like a McDonald's employee, then I wasn't going to spin my wheels there. I'd flip burgers if I was gonna be paid like that. He nodded. You're still looking here in Birmingham? He asked. Mostly, I admitted. I put in applications at jobs I'd be happy to get at other places around the country. Colorado too? He asked. No, I said with a shake of my head. None in Miami either. He nodded in understanding. I hope you get something you love around here, he said sympathetically. It was a week later when the company started cutting back on hours. My boss gave me the news and shrugged apologetically. Not my decision, he reminded me. I know, I told him. I'll print out my resignation and start cleaning up my files. You, don't need to, he said uncomfortably. I'll show you out. I looked at him, not getting what he was saying, and I think it came across. Look, we can't have you in the computer systems if you're quitting. There's too much risk that a disgruntled employee could try to cripple the network. Just gather your things and I'll walk you out. I shrugged and cleaned up my desk. If I wasn't disgruntled before, I was pissed now. I'd been nothing but hardworking and honest, but now I was being treated like a criminal. It was my first experience with this kind of treatment. Neither of us spoke while I gathered my personal effects and turned in my swipe card for the doors, and then I was escorted to a small meeting room where I wrote out my resignation, and that was it. There was no handshake, no hope that I'd be back someday, no best wishes. I wasn't a person here. I was just a help button people pushed when something went wrong. I got a few looks as I was escorted to the door, and it felt humiliating. But my father had made me familiar with being humiliated in the workplace. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, but this was what the company did to protect themselves from people that would. As much as I didn't like it, I knew it was in place for a reason. I packed the single box into the back of my car and drove home. I was early and I knew Mary would have questions. She was on maternity leave now that she was so close to her due date. She was laying on the sofa, watching TV when I came in. You're home early, she commented. You feeling okay? I came down with a slight case of unemployed, I told her. What? What happened? I told her about the cutbacks and getting escorted out when I mentioned resigning. I shrugged and explained why those policies are there. That calmed her down some, but she was still angry that they treat me like that. Honey, you should buy a lottery ticket, she said sympathetically. If anyone deserves to win big, it's you. She hugged me and I nodded silently. Everything that happened the past few years had been piling up. I must have been a terrible person in another life to owe this much karma. I went to my room before I got too emotional and turned on some music. I did that a lot when I felt like I needed to cry. I still missed Sabrina so much that the feeling was like a knife in my chest all the time. Sometimes I could hold it in and sometimes I couldn't. I think they knew what it meant when I turned on music and closed my door, but they were sensitive enough to never mention it. I curled up on the bed and wept. I ached to hear her voice, to see her smile. Just let me go to her. I whispered a prayer to God. I begged him for that every day, but rarely out loud. It was the same words I'd used to plead with the nurses the first time I woke up in a world without her. We'd been gone from Denver for nearly a year now, and it still hurt as much today as it had when her hand had stopped squeezing mine. It took most of the day, but I slowly pulled myself together and started looking for jobs with more determination. I sent out letters to anyone and everyone I could think of, and a few people that I didn't think would even read the attached qualifications. I skipped lunch and didn't open the door or turn off the music until Mike tapped on the door softly, telling me that dinner was ready. That made me feel ashamed all over again. I'd been trying to do most of the cooking lately to take the strain off of Mary, and today, when I'd had the whole day to plan something special for the 3 of us, I dropped the ball and left her to do it. I needn't have worried. She'd called Mike and told him to bring dinner home. There's one huge advantage to living in the South. There's no end to fantastic barbecue restaurants. I sat down and apologized for not handling dinner. You do that enough, Mike told me. Mary told me you had a bad day at work. I nodded, and we ate in relative quiet. I was wrapped in my own thoughts and not really up to talking. Peter, Mary said toward the end of the meal, we're worried about you, honey. You've had a lot of bad things happen. Have you thought about talking to someone about it? I shook my head. I saw someone after what happened with Linda, but all he could do was get me to the point where I wasn't going to kill them for that. You should give it some thought, she told me. Losing your job today must have been one thing too many to cope with. I shrugged. I'll think about it, I conceded. Once I'm back to work and have coverage for it, we'll see how I feel. The phone rang then, interrupting the discussion, and I got up to answer it, glad of the distraction and hoping it was someone calling about a job. There was only breathing on the other end of the phone. The job, the grief, the stress of finding a new one and a new place boiled over. What do you want? I bellowed into the phone, my face starting to turn red. Leave me alone. I'm already miserable. Is that what you wanted? You want me to feel dead inside? I do. Are you happy now? I wasn't aware I was screaming and crying, and I didn't even feel it when Mary plucked the phone out of my hand. Hello? Whoever this is, please stop calling him. He had to watch the woman he loved die in his arms. Whatever you think he's done to hurt you, he's suffering more than he can cope with. Calling to taunt him is more cruel than anything he could have done to you. So, please, leave him alone. She hung up the phone, and the two of them picked me up from where I'd slid down the wall. They put me back to bed and came to check on me through the evening until I drifted off into a fitful sleep, plagued by the dreams where I was back in the car with Sabrina. Those dreams came all too often, and that moment before the light turned green was the last time I was happy. I woke up suddenly, aware of the room around me as sleep vanished like a popped bubble. I opened my eyes in the dark and saw that it was 6 in the morning. I started working on my emails right away, trying to find work. I needed it to keep me busy. I was starting to broaden my search and was even thinking of how much money I had put aside to see if I could go back to college for a teaching degree or even my PhD. Dawn bloomed while I worked, and Mary and Mike started their day. Mike came to check on me before he got in the shower. I'm fine, I lied when he came to the door. I'm doing better than last night. That part was true enough. He nodded and went away, but I suspected that wasn't going to be the last I heard about it. I left my room and started breakfast. I made his first, thinking that he'd need to get out the door and the smell would attract Mary from her slumber, but with enough delay so that I could start hers separately. She'd embraced the cravings that came with pregnancy, and her mornings were the worst usually. I had a stack of pancakes just ready to go when Mike came out to pour his coffee. Thanks, little brother, he said. Is there anything I can do to help? Nah, I got this, I told him. I've got some time on my hands. Might as well be useful. He nodded and started to eat while I made his lunch for him. Usually Mary did this part, but I was feeling like I needed to keep busy today. He watched me pack his lunch without any comments and then go back to making breakfast. I took the bowl of pancake batter and mixed in a handful of chocolate chips, some raspberries, and then shook in generous helpings of curry and cayenne, mixing it up to make Mary's pancakes. Mike shook his head as he watched. You're gonna eat that? He asked, surprised. It's for Mary, I told him. She'll love it, I think. He laughed at that and finished his breakfast. You gonna be okay today? He asked. I nodded. I'm working on the job search, so that'll take a lot of the day. He sighed and wanted to say more, but it was time to go to work for him. He picked up his lunch and then clapped me on the shoulder. Normally, I thank Mary for packing my lunch with a belly rub, he said. I think you might slug me if I tried that. Probably, I said, with a small chuckle. See you tonight. He said goodbye, and then he was out the door. Mary showed up a few minutes later, her hair still sticking up from bed. Coffee, she demanded. It's bad for the baby, I reminded her. I'll make you some tea instead. No, today I want a cup of coffee, she said and waddled over to the pot to pour half a cup. She added a splash of hot water to dilute it a little, and then added sugar and cream before she came to look over my shoulder. That smells heavenly. She practically drooled. Good, I said. It's for you. I got her stacked together and she sat at the table, digging in appreciatively. This is just what I need to start the day, she told me with a groan. I smiled and took a cup of coffee for myself and joined her at the table. Sorry for last night, I told her. I've been getting those calls for a while now. Last night it was just more than I could handle. She nodded and put down her fork for a moment. I know, honey, she said. Mike let me know last night. You really think it's Billy or Linda? It's someone in Denver, I said. It's not the lawyer. It's not Sabrina's parents, and it's not Mom. They'd all talk to me. Dad would tell me I was a disappointment and I should be over it by now. I'm not in contact with anyone else. They're the last two people I even know from Denver. Why do you think they're doing it? She asked, picking her fork up and starting to eat again. Probably to gloat, I said. They own my future, right? Every time I start to move on, they come back and take everything from me. First, Billy nearly kills me at a job site, and then he makes me watch Sabrina die. Now the phone calls. I can't move forward if I'm looking over my shoulder. I should have killed them when I had the chance. I might have gotten manslaughter instead of murder. With time off, I'd be out by now. She frowned at the idea that they were doing this to keep me from recovering. If I find out that's what they're doing, she said dangerously, they'll answer to me. I'm not as forgiving as you are. I nodded. I can't think of another person or another reason for the calls. She let the subject drop, but I could tell from her face that she was plotting something. That lasted until mid-afternoon. She was in the bathroom when she called out for me. My water just broke, honey, she told me. Get my bag and call Mike. I'm just taking a minute to clean up and then we can go. I did what I was told, like a good soldier, and Mike said he'd meet us at the hospital. Mary opened the bathroom door, and we were on our way as soon as she could slip her shoes on. Mary called her cousin from the car and told her that she was having the baby. That let the rest of the family know what was going on. Mary had a big extended family here in Alabama. We got to the hospital, and they took her into maternity. She had a death grip on my hand and dragged me along. She was having contractions and trying to crush my hand with each one. I held on as hard as she did, knowing that I could only try to be encouraging and supportive. She was a champ. By the time Mike got to the hospital, I was sure my hand was broken. I let him take my place and went out to the waiting room for the news. Mary's family started to filter in, and I told them what I knew. I got some hugs from some of the women and handshakes from the men that made me wince a little after Mary's grip. Once everyone was there and informed, it was hurry up and wait. I talked with everyone quietly, and we all got along. Family was the next thing to God here in the South. They all knew the story of how Mike and I were on the outs with our folks, and they were quick to adopt both of us. It was a little after midnight when Mike came out to let us know. She's okay, he said, his eyes brimming with tears. What did she have? Someone asked. A boy or a girl? One of each, he told them. She had twins. He came and hugged me. You need to come and see them, he told me. Everyone will, but you first. I nodded and allowed him to guide me into the room where Mary was holding the twins. She had her gown adjusted to nurse them, and they were both peacefully feeding. They had been cleaned up, as had she. She looked both radiant and exhausted at the same time. Congratulations, Mommy, I whispered to her with a teary smile, which she returned. Peter, she said softly, I'd like you to meet your nephew, Peter Elliott Hamilton, the second, she said, nodding to the bundle that was nursing on her right side. You named your son after me? I gasped, looking back and forth between the two of them. I was overwhelmed. But what about your grandfather? They'd been planning to name him after her grandfather if it had been a boy. When we found out it was twins, this was what we decided, Mike said softly. Let me introduce you to your niece, Sabrina Abigail Hamilton. Sabrina, I whispered, looking at the little girl. We'd always be together this way. She'd always be part of our family. I wept with gratitude and grief and loss. I wished she could be here to see the little girl who bore her name. I hugged Mike and cried for a long time before I could go to Mary. I hugged her awkwardly and then gently touched the babies' heads affectionately. I was promised that I could hold the babies in the morning, but we wanted to give the rest of the family time to meet their new additions. I went outside and sat on a bench to take in the night air. I was a little calmer now and decided I needed to make a call. Hello? Mrs. Pierce answered the phone. Hi, Mrs. Pierce, I said. It's Peter. I'm sorry to call so late, but I have a piece of news to share, and I didn't want to wait until morning. Peter, she said. How are you? You sound upset. Is everything okay? I'm managing. I miss her every day, same as you do. That's why I'm calling. You remember my brother, Mike, and his fiancée, Mary? Yes, they were at the service with you, she confirmed. They're married now and Mary just gave birth. She had a boy and a girl. I wanted you to know they named the twins after me and Sabrina. They what? She asked me to repeat it. They named their daughter Sabrina Abigail, I told her. They love Sabrina too. She was weeping on the other end of the phone and repeated what I'd told her for her husband. That got the three of us crying together. I kept in touch with them over this past year, but this was the first time either of us had truly good news to share. I promised to send pictures when I could take some, and they asked if Mike or Mary would mind them coming down to see the babies. I'll ask, but I think they'd be disappointed if you didn't, I said. We talked a little more and then said goodnight. When I went back inside, Mike was still playing host, so I talked with a few of the family there. They finally called a halt to the visitors so Mary could rest, and then Mike and I went home. I had a crib already set up in my room, and Mike revealed that they had a second one. I started working on putting it together right away so we could bring them home. I just put it together in my room, working happily to be able to welcome the twins home when they could be released. Mike watched me for a little bit, and I looked up at him and smiled. My eyes were still running. "Thank you for that," I told him. "I can't tell you what it means to me." "I know," he said. "We both know it's been eating at you. I know it's not the same, but she's been with us this past year in spirit." I nodded. "I called her parents and let them know," I told him. "How'd they take the news?" He asked. "They want to come see the kids. They were touched at knowing that you made her part of our family." He nodded. "Tell them they're welcome to come visit," he said softly. "We'd like them to meet Sabrina." I nodded, and we finished the second crib together, setting it up in my room. "You sure you're okay with having them in here?" he asked. "Positive," I said. "I want to help out as much as I can, especially while Mary's recovering." He nodded. "You still planning on sticking around Birmingham?" "I'd like to," I said. "I'm not getting any hits around here, though. I could move to Alaska tomorrow to do IT work in the frozen north, but that's too far." He nodded and told me that he hoped I'd find something close. Then we turned in so we could get to the hospital early the next day. Over the next few weeks, there was a lot of attention coming and going. Mary and Mike had been forced to explain why the name changed, and I hadn't told the story before, so there was a fresh round of sympathy. Sabrina's parents flew down for a few days and doted over the children like they were new grandparents. Mike and Mary told them that they could consider themselves hired for the job if they wanted it, and that cemented them as part of the family. I was sleeping with the kids in my room when I had the dream again. It was the first time since the babies had come, and I whimpered as I recognized it. It started like the others. The light turned green and the headlights hurled toward us, but this time the dream changed. I was standing in my room, the twins asleep in their cribs, but there she was, standing between them, looking down at our namesakes. Each of the twins had one of her fingers squeezed in their tiny fists as she looked at them. "They're beautiful," she said, looking at me over her shoulder. She was smiling and my heart broke all over again. "I miss you so much," I told her and stepped toward her. She looked anguished and nodded, gently pulling her fingers loose and turning toward me. "I know. I see you cry, and I'm sorry I'm not here with you." "No," I argued. "I'm sorry. I wanted to go with you. I still want to be with you. I want to go to you all the time." "I know," she told me. "You have to let go. You still have things to do. My time with you was amazing and I love you. But you have to live, be happy, and build a life." "The only life I wanted was with you," I said. "That's not true," she laughed lightly, the sound knifing through my soul as it tore open the memories of the laughter we'd shared. "You wanted other lives before you met me," she pointed out. "Pick one. Live it and make it good." I shook my head. "The only other life I wanted was Linda, and you know how that ended." "You'll meet someone new," she predicted. "When you do, I'll be cheering for you. I have to go now. I just wanted to see the little ones and let you know I'm okay. Come see me when you're in Denver next. We'll talk more then." "Don't go," I begged her. "I don't want to lose you again." "You're not losing me," she promised. "I'm just watching over your shoulder for now." I tried to hold on as the dream faded, but the harder I tried, the faster I woke up. I stared at the cribs where she'd been standing and wept. Sleep was a long time coming after that, though the dream didn't repeat. I woke up when Mary came to check on the kids. "It's only me," she said soothingly when I started out of sleep. I fell back onto my pillow with a groan. "What time is it?" I asked. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. My head hurt, my eyes burned. My sinuses were clogged and my throat felt like I'd rubbed rock salt into it. "Early," she told me. "Mike should be getting up for work soon. Why don't you go back to sleep? I can handle breakfast today." "No, I'm okay," I said and started to get up. "Like hell you are," she said. "I know you dreamed about her last night." "How?" "Baby monitor," she told me. "You were talking in your sleep. It sounded like a bad one. I didn't wake Mike, but I heard you crying for a long time afterwards." "I dreamed that she came to see the kids," I said, embarrassed beyond words that she'd heard me. She nodded. "And to say goodbye," she prompted me gently. She told me to live, to stop wanting to be with her. I was starting to cry again. It was the first time I'd broken down in front of her in ages. She put Petey back down in his crib and came to sit with me, putting an arm around my shoulder and weeping with me while I cried. "I think that's good advice," she told me when we both calmed down. "It's been a year since she was taken from us. What happened was terrible and it's worse because you had to see it, but you can't stop living, Pete. Mike and I want you to find someone. I know that you want to stay here for the kids, but we've got this. Take one of the jobs you've been thinking about. Get out on your own. Meet a girl. Meet two. Meet a whole bunch. Let Mike live vicariously through you for a change. I know you've had to listen to enough of our nighttime antics to scar you for life. Let him get a taste of single life from your hijinks. I shrugged. I can't just turn it off, I told her. If I could, I would have flipped the switch on Linda before I left the house that day. She nodded. I didn't say it had to happen overnight, she pointed out. Just remember how you got over Linda. It was gradual, but eventually you could talk about it without getting upset, and then you got to the point where you really didn't talk about it because it didn't matter. I nodded. I knew what she was saying. I guess I allowed. Believe it or not, I think that dream was a good thing, she said and kissed my cheek before getting up to get Sabrina. How so? Well, there's two possibilities, she said. Either Sabrina's spirit really is reaching out to you and telling you that it's time for you to turn toward the future, or it's your subconscious mind telling you that you're ready to stop mourning. Either way, it's good. If it's Sabrina, then she's probably the only person that could convince you to let go. If it's your mind, then it means that you're healing on your own. Both of those possibilities mean that you're ready to move on and stop living in that last terrible moment. I nodded. I think I preferred the idea that this was Sabrina's idea. Mike started making noise at that point, telling us that he was up, so we let the topic drop. I changed Petey while she got Sabrina ready to face the day. Mike came to the door and I passed him his son so he could say hello. He took Petey, but he gave me a searching look that I returned with question in my eyes. Baby monitor, he said. He'd heard everything we talked about. Oh, I said, embarrassed all over again. It's okay, he said. I agree. It's time for you to make a future for yourself. Petey and Sabrina need cousins eventually. I shrugged. It seemed to be what everyone wanted. I just needed a special appearance from Sabrina's parents to tell me the same and a phone call from my old counselor. I'll work on it. I promised them all. The next few weeks saw me intensify my job search. I finally found a company in Austin that was interested. They were building high-tech homes and needed a computer expert to install computer cable in the walls in Phase 1, then integrate the systems in Phase 2 and get the in-house automation ready for new owners in Phase 3. I said goodbye to my brother, his wife and our little angels, and hit the road in the brand new Silverado that I'd bought specifically because of the job. I found that I liked the work. We were building the development in 3 different stages, getting 100 homes ready for sale in each stage. I was replacing a guy who'd quit to take on an office job in Dallas with an oil company. Dave, my boss, was grateful to have someone that knew how to handle themselves at a job site, and soon we were moving smoothly, getting stage 1 to market. That was a year ago. Today, I'd heard the voice of Sabrina's killer for the first time in years. I went home and parked my truck in my spot in the driveway. I'd rented a small apartment from Mrs. Sanchez as soon as I'd gotten into town. I'd asked for recommendations for places to call home from my boss, and her name had been at the top of the list. She was in her 40s, widowed, and took in students to help pay the bills. She had 4 bedrooms in the house and an apartment that had once been her husband's man cave over the garage. I took the apartment, but provided unofficial security and tech support for her, and she'd been good to me in return, looking after the apartment when I'd driven to Birmingham for the holidays and making sure I was getting a home-cooked meal a few times a week. Today I went to the house and knocked on the front door. She came out and smiled when she saw me. Mrs. Sanchez, has anyone called here looking for me in the last few days? I asked. She nodded. Your brother said he needed to find you this morning, she told me. It sounded urgent, so I gave him the work number. Is everything okay? Not really, I said. I actually have 2 brothers. The one that called today is not welcome with me. He knows that. He tricked you into giving him my work number. Don't feel bad about it. Once upon a time, he tricked me too. That's why he's not allowed to be part of my life anymore. Was he the only one that's been looking for me? Your sister arrived here about an hour ago, she told me, starting to look alarmed that she may have done something wrong. I nodded. I knew that Mary hadn't been to Austin. The kids were too young for a trip that long. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Sanchez. Did she say when she'd be back? She asked. She wanted to know if she could wait in your apartment. I let her in. That's her car parked at the street. Should I go get rid of her? I'll handle it, I said. In the future, if someone comes looking for me, call me instead of giving them the number, please. The brother that called today. He killed someone I loved very much in a car crash. There's no forgiveness for him, and it upsets me to hear from him. I'm so sorry, she said. Tell me what I can do to fix it. I may want you to come with me when I go to see who's in my apartment. It's not my sister. She's in Alabama with her children. I don't think I want to have this conversation without a witness. Okay, she said and started putting her shoes on. While she did that, I went to look at the car, confirming that the plates were from Colorado. Damn. I'd had hope that it was someone I'd want to see. I collected Mrs. Sanchez, and we went back to my apartment. I unlocked the door, and we went up the stairs to find my least favorite person in the world waiting for me. You drove a long way, I commented, and then went to get a beer. I didn't want to be drunk for this conversation, but I had to have something to steady my nerves. I know what you must be thinking, Linda admitted. I guess I can't blame you. Lady, you have no idea what I'm thinking, I told her. I was actually thinking about packing the truck and driving off into the sunset. At least none of them had ever contacted me in LA. I could probably get some work doing computer work for an adult company, hook up with some of the talent, and spend my free time on the beach. It was pathetic that Linda was the last person I'd had sex with. Sabrina and I were planning to spend that night together, but Billy made sure to put an end to my sex life again. If I were you, I'd be thinking about hitting me, she said. That's a tempting offer, I admitted. I got Mrs. Sanchez a beer that she took gratefully, if for no other reason than for the distraction. I think if I took you up on it, I'd have trouble stopping. I get the feeling that hitting you would be addictive. That's not what I was thinking, though. She nodded, even though she blanched at my declaration that I wouldn't want to stop hitting her. So what were you thinking? She asked. I was thinking about going back to the one place I was free of you and my brother, I told her. You tracked me down in Birmingham. The calls were from you, weren't they? She winced and nodded. It wasn't meant to hurt you, she said. I remember you telling me that about your choices in life once before, I said dryly. All right, I'm done playing guessing games. Why are you here, and why is Billy calling me at work? He tracked you down? She asked, sounding surprised. I didn't think he'd be able to find you. Well, you must have left a clue behind, I told her. He called Mrs. Sanchez and tricked her into giving him my work number. Sort of like how you talked her into letting you into my apartment. She nodded guiltily. I'm sorry about that, she said. It's funny how you're always sorry, but you never stop doing things to make it worse, I pointed out and then sighed. All right, what's on your mind? You clearly came down here for a reason. It's a little far to pop in just to say hello. She nodded, but glanced at Mrs. Sanchez uncomfortably. Well, first off, I wanted to tell you how sorry I was that Sabrina died. Mary showed us the pictures of the two of you. I was very glad you were happy. When the accident happened, we had no idea that it was you in the other car. When I heard that she'd been killed and that you were in the car with her, my heart broke for you. I'd been so hopeful that she'd make you happy, and then in an instant, it was all taken away. I nodded and took a pull on my beer. I hadn't offered her one, but then, she was going to have to drive home from here. Thank you for your sympathies, I said flatly. I wasn't sarcastic about it, but I still had nightmares about it. It was the most awful day of my life. She gave me an anguished look. I know you don't believe me, she said sadly, but I mean it. I know you do, I told her. I'm not being sarcastic. I just see that night in my dreams all too often. You know she was awake before the end? She gaped at me in horror and shook her head. She apologized to me. She said she loved me, and she was sorry that she wasn't going to be around to say it. She told me she was scared, but her last thoughts were that regret that she was leaving me alone. I'd gotten to the point where I could talk about this and not cry. It still broke my heart to think about that night, but I didn't think that would ever change. I didn't know, she whispered. Yeah, no reason you should. After the accident, Mike decided he'd had enough of Billy tearing chunks out of my flesh. After he almost killed me at work, and then after he killed Sabrina, we got out, but you wouldn't stop following me. I don't know how you tracked me down, but the phone calls where you just breathed were making it worse. She nodded. I was calling to try to tell you how sorry I was about Sabrina, she said. Every time I'd hear your voice, though, I'd panic. What could I say that would make it better? I'd freeze up every time. When you asked me to stop, I berated myself for a month for upsetting you. Then when you screamed at me and Mary took the phone, I knew I couldn't do it by phone. So you drove all the way down here to tell me that you're sorry about Sabrina? I asked, sure that I was missing something. Not just that, she said, looking down. Billy and I are married now, and I'm pregnant. I wanted to talk to you about the baby. If it's a girl, I was planning on naming her Sabrina if you're okay with that. I shook my head. Mike and Mary named their daughter after her already, I told her. They had a baby? She gaped. They had twins, I told her. A little girl named Sabrina and a little boy named Peter. They loved Sabrina too. Everyone who knew her did. She looked crestfallen. This had been her last best hope to reach out to me. That must have made you very happy, she said softly. It made Sabrina's parents happy too. They've been down to visit at least 3 times since the twins were born. She nodded. Your mother would probably like the chance to see them, she suggested. That's not my decision, I told her. I never asked Mike to cut her off. For that matter, I never asked them to cut you and Billy off. Mike decided that what happened that night was too much for him to gloss over. She nodded. Your mother said that it had made the three of you decide to move away, she said. I tracked you down through a friend. She's in computers, like you, but her specialty is online security. She found out that you were in Birmingham, and then she said it was easy to find your work and home numbers. I shrugged. Took you a little longer to find me here, I commented. Yeah, she agreed. You didn't get an apartment in your name. She tracked you down through your truck. That took a little longer, I guess. So you wanted to tell me that you were sorry about Sabrina and ask my blessing to name your daughter after her. Anything else on your mind? Can we just catch up for a little while, Petey? She asked. I thought about that for a long moment and finally nodded. All right, I said. I turned toward Mrs. Sanchez. I won't keep you any later, Mrs. Sanchez. Thanks for coming to make sure everything was okay. I think we'll be okay now. She nodded and knocked back the rest of her beer. I should start dinner anyway, she said. Will you two be joining us? Not tonight, I don't think, I said judiciously. I think we'll order delivery. Could you send them back to us if they come to the door? Sure, she said and disappeared down the stairs. As soon as she did, I took out my phone and started the recording app, setting it up to record to the cloud. Linda, I feel the need to record the rest of our conversation. Since Mrs. Sanchez just left, I told her. I admit that there's almost no chance that you came here to cause me trouble, but you're a married woman and it's reasonable for Billy to think that I'd do just about anything to get back at him, so I need to protect myself. You understand? Yes, she said. I think that's probably a good idea. I would never cheat on Billy, but he might think I would be tempted to try to apologize to you physically. I nodded and plugged the phone in so that it wouldn't die while we were talking. We agreed on pizza and I used my house phone to order it before we settled in to talk. She was sitting on the sofa, so I took the chair. It was where I sat most of the time anyway. I don't really go by Pete anymore, I told her for starters. Most people call me Ham now, short for Hamilton. She nodded. Is that because of Mike's kids? She asked. Maybe a little, but mostly because there's 3 guys named Peter on the crew I work on, I told her. You're back working construction? Sort of, I said. I install household automation in the houses as they're being built. I run cable, set up the networks, and test the systems. That sounds interesting, she said, trying to be upbeat. I nodded. The technology is amazing, but the work is mostly routine, I admitted. What about you? What do you do for a living? You finished college? I did. I got my certification as a CPA and I'm working for a firm in Denver, she told me. That is routine. What you do is exciting compared to that. I nodded. Did Billy finish school and get a job? I asked. I wasn't avoiding topics. He tried computers like you, she admitted. He didn't have the aptitude for it though. He's working with your dad. I shrugged at that. It was tempting to gloat that Billy boy flunked out, but I restrained the impulse, telling myself that Mike had too and I loved and respected Mike. Not everyone's cut out for classrooms, I said casually. So that's work. How are your parents? They're okay, she said. We don't spend a lot of time with them, especially since the accident. They blame Billy? I asked. She nodded. They were never really thrilled with him, she admitted. When you were coming around that Christmas, Mom figured out that we hadn't told you yet. She told me that was a cruel thing to do to someone, no matter what I was feeling. I shrugged and nodded in agreement, but didn't put my mouth in the middle of that. Do they know that I was in the other car when the accident happened? I asked. She nodded. I don't think they believe it was an accident, she admitted. Neither do I, Linda. I might if it weren't for the fact that he nearly killed me on the job when he was there. Was it really that bad? She asked skeptically. I stood up and showed her the scar on my back. A few inches to the left and I'd have been in a wheelchair. A couple of inches deeper, and it would have stabbed me in the kidney, and I could have bled out while they were trying to get me free. She nodded. He didn't do it on purpose, she promised me. When we got free from the airbags, he went to check. He was in hysterics when he came back. He recognized you. You were already screaming for her to wake up. I could hear that from in the truck. I nodded. It was the worst night of my life, brought to me by the producers of the second worst night of my life. I commented dryly. She cringed. I know. I'm sorry. I came here hoping that I could offer you something that would at least give you some peace. I nodded. When I woke up in the hospital, I didn't remember at first. Then it hit me all over again and I freaked out. They had to sedate me. The first words I actually said was to beg them to let me go to her. Mary made me promise not to do anything to make it happen. She knew that the only thing I wanted was to lay down in the ground next to Sabrina and let them bury us both, but she made me promise not to seek it out. So I prayed every day for over a year for something to send me to her. I saw your headlights coming toward us almost every night for months. She looked upset and nodded. She was getting a picture of how badly I'd been injured in the crash, not physically, but emotionally. How did you get over it? She asked. I didn't, I told her. I think about it less. I pray for it less. I have the nightmare less often, but I still wake up sometimes and feel disappointed that I'm here and not with her. That must be awful. She frowned at hearing that. I shrugged. My life is awful, I said simply. Since the day you kissed Billy in front of me, my life has been beat down in recovery. As soon as I recover from this, something else will happen, and I suspect that fate or Billy's talent for making the world a worse place or cosmic humor will bring the two of you back into my life, just when I'm on the edge of getting my feet back under me to ruin it all. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm nowhere near recovered, I'd suspect today was that day. After all, Billy called me at work, and here you are. I swear, I'm not here to cause trouble, she told me quickly, shaking her head in denial that she'd do anything to hurt me. Relax, I said. There's nothing for you to destroy. There's no one in my life. My job is okay, so long as Billy doesn't keep calling the office. All my furniture belongs with the apartment. I don't have much else to my name. What do you do with your time? She asked. I work as much as I can, I told her. When I'm not working, I sleep. Sometimes I get a little drunk and talk to ghosts. That's about it. Not much left to take away. She looked deeply troubled. What can I do to help? She asked seriously. Mostly stay away, I told her. If I see Billy again, I'll kill him. I won't hesitate. I won't think twice. I'll always think of Sabrina's death as murder, whether he meant it when he put the key in the ignition or it just happened. He ran a red light and slammed into the car hard enough that they couldn't make her presentable for her own funeral. Part of me hopes he does show up. Texas practices capital punishment. It'd put us both out of our misery. But you're pregnant. Your child will need a father. Billy'll have to do. So keep him away from me. If I ever come back to Denver, I'll be visiting 2 places on my way through town. He has no business being in either location. What locations? She asked. Her grave and her parents' place, I told her. Not your mother? Nope. I said goodbye to her the last time I saw her. Nothing more to say to her. She sends letters to me at Mike's place once in a while. She doesn't know I'm in Texas. He sends me the letters and I send him the replies. I think she'd worry if she knew he wasn't around to take care of me anymore. I don't want to take that minimal comfort from her. I sometimes get the sense that she's not holding together very well. She nodded. She keeps your graduation photos up on the wall and talks about you whenever she can, she admitted. She's still proud of you getting through college, and I know she's near frantic about how you're doing. She came to see you in the hospital. I nodded. Mary told me they both did, I said. I was still unconscious. I wanted to go, but I couldn't think of how to tell you how sorry I was. It's okay, I said lightly. I wasn't in any state of mind to hear anyone except Mary and Mike, I told her. I think that's most of what's been going on in my life, though. What about you? You see any of the people we went to high school with, or are most of your friends from college now? College mostly, she said. Most of the high school crew scattered after graduation. A few are still around, but they're in the minority and I don't really stay in touch with any of them. I nodded. You lose any friends over what happened with you and Billy? She nodded. 1 or 2, she admitted. Most people saw the change in me when I started dating him and got over it, but there were a couple that couldn't bring themselves to approve. I nodded. That was about what I'd expect. I got up to answer the door and paid for the pizza. We ate in the living room with the box between us on the coffee table. I'd switched to soda after that first beer and I poured her one too. So I think that catches us up on pretty much everything that's going on, I told her as we ate. Well, we bought a house, she said. That's one thing. We're renovating it with help from your father. It's not huge and we got it cheap because there were a lot of problems with it, but it's ours. Congratulations, I said with a bit of a smile. I'm glad that you've got a place to raise your kids. She nodded, clearly thrilled with the idea of having a house. I've got some pictures on my phone. She dug it out and brought them up, passing it to show me what it looked like. It was moderately sized, but I could see that it needed a lot of TLC. I swiped through the pictures until I got to the end and then handed it back to her. Nice, I told her. I can see the potential in it. I'm sure that it'll look like $1 million when the 2 of them are done with the renovations. I can hardly wait. She gushed. What about you? Have you given any thoughts to settling down anywhere? I used to, but not for a while, I said. I wanted to tell her that Sabrina and I had been planning on Miami, but we put that topic to bed and I wasn't going to drag us back there. She nodded. You should. There's nothing like having your own place. It's kind of awesome. I nodded. I suppose that if I got a long-term job or hit a relationship, I'd think about putting down roots. Until those happen, renting from Mrs. Sanchez suits my needs. This job isn't permanent? She asked, surprised. No, it's actually almost done, I said. We're finishing up the last stage of the construction. Then I set up the computer systems in each home and test them. I'll probably be done sometime in August. What are you planning after that? She wanted to know. Back to Birmingham for a while to see the kids and look for a new job. Then where the work is until I can find something in my field that makes me happy. I can ask my friend if she knows of any places that you might try, she offered hopefully. I shook my head. That's okay, I said. I'm not in a particular hurry. If I need to get bills paid, I can work with Mike for a while. She gave me a look. Let me help, she pleaded. It doesn't have to mean anything. It's just me asking her if she knows anyone that might be hiring. She still has contacts even if she doesn't need a job. I shrugged. Fine. Tell her to email me if she knows something, I told her. What's your email? She asked. I arched my eyebrow. You had this woman track me halfway across the country, figure out my home and work phone numbers, hack her way into DMV records to track my truck, and she can't find my email? I'm surprised she's not reading my messages before I get them. She chuckled at that. She wasn't looking for your online presence. She was looking for clues to your location. I'll tell her to email you. You know, she said leadingly, you two would probably hit it off if you forgot she was friends with me. We might, I agreed, but I still have nightmares. Not so easy to look to the future when you're still living in one horrible moment. She nodded. Give her a chance if you talk to her. You have enough in common with each other to be friends at least. I shrugged. If she strikes up a conversation, I'm not going to be rude, but don't push it. It took me 4 years after what happened between you and me before I found Sabrina. I don't see me moving on soon or easily. She nodded. If it's all right with you, I'll talk to her about what happened. Eve tends to put her foot in her mouth as skillfully as Billy, and I seem to make life harder for you. Linda, there's also the complication that she's your friend, I reminded her. You and I have had a pleasant chat today without yelling or hitting or large amounts of hate. That's the absolute best outcome you could have been hoping for when you got here, and you were probably expecting me to beat the living shit out of you on some level. She nodded. I know. You don't know how grateful I am that you were willing to sit down and talk to me. I meant it when I said that I did like you. It's been hard on me, knowing that you hated me. I know I earned it, but I always wanted us to be friends someday. Sabrina probably could have brought us together, I said sadly. If she'd told me that she wanted me to talk to you and Billy, she could have talked me into it. She nodded. Would you like me to tell him that? She asked. I think it would probably hurt him to know that she had the power to bring the two of you back together. I shook my head and took another slice of pizza. Don't tell him on my account. If you want to punish him, go ahead. You're the one that had to live with him. She considered that and nodded. You're right. It's probably best if he didn't know that. Save it for the next time he pisses you off, I suggested. She laughed a little about that. Once the laughter died out, she looked at me seriously. So, now what? She asked. I think we've talked about most everything there is on the plate. Where do we go from here? You should probably call your husband, I suggested. I suspect that he called me at work to see if I'd heard from you. Knowing him, he's just dim-witted enough to drive down here after you. You need to stop him before that thought gets in his head. She nodded and picked up her phone again, this time to call him. Hi, honey, she said when he picked up. I couldn't hear his side of the conversation, but I could only imagine. I told you I was going to try to talk to Pete, she reminded him patiently. Yes, Eve tracked him down. I'm told you called him at work earlier. Yes, he's here now. We've been talking about things. No, that's not a good idea. Why not? What sort of response did he give you when you called him on the job? She demanded. He hung up on you. You think he wants to talk to you? After that? He'll probably hang up again, and he may crush the phone in his hand since your throat isn't here for him to squeeze. Yes, he still hates you. Yes, he still hates me too, but I wasn't driving the truck that night, so he'll at least talk to me. Maybe it's not fair, but I'm just telling you how he feels. Yeah, we've been talking. No, he hasn't hurt me, Bill. Well, for starters, he knows I'm pregnant, and however much he hates us, he knows the baby didn't have anything to do with it. Besides, he was never the kind of guy to hit a woman. No, he doesn't want us to name the baby after her. Mike already named his daughter Sabrina. Yeah, Mary had twins. They named the boy Peter. That's right. So Peter and Sabrina would be together again. Yes, it was incredibly thoughtful. I listened to the exchange, amused at what I could piece together of the conversation. She hadn't told him she was coming down here, just that she was going to talk to me. He wanted her to give me the phone so he could say his piece, Was a little indignant that I wasn't forgiving him for ramming our car and wanted to know if I'd hurt her. I almost wished I could see his face when she told him about the twins. No, Bill, she said patiently, that's not a good idea. He thinks of it as murder. I know it was an accident, but so was the thing where he got hurt at work. Well, look at it from his point of view. Every time something bad happens, you're in the middle of it, saying it was an accident. No, I'm not saying you did either of those on purpose, but you'd start getting suspicious too if it kept happening. Bill, I'm not running you down. He's hated your guts for 6 years. I'm just telling you that it hasn't changed, and the talk that I've had with him tells me that you could wait 6 more and he wouldn't forgive you. You really want to complain that it's not fair? I wasn't going to tell you this, Bill, but he said she was awake after the accident. She had time to speak to him. She told him she loved him, and then she died right there with him. If we'd been in the car and he'd been in the truck, could you have gotten over it? She asked pointedly. I winced because that was a trap. If he said no, he admitted that he was out of line to really ask. If he said yes, then he suffered the wrath of a wife who's been told that her death wouldn't be a deal breaker. For those of you keeping score at home, the correct answer is to tell the wife that you see her point and make a sound as if contemplating all the complicated permutations and then never bring up the conversation again. Sometimes Billy's not too bright. Oh, you could you? She thundered, indignantly. Bill, I can't even talk to you right now. If you come down here, Pete is going to beat you to death like a rabid dog. He's not really concerned about getting caught either. He mentioned that lethal injection would get him back to Sabrina, and that's what he wants. Did you really just say that? Really? You know what? I told Pete that I'd never cheat on you and I won't, but after that crack, I'm really tempted to spend the night here and say it's not cheating since I told you I was doing it. I'll deal with you when I get home. Goodbye. She hung up the phone and then let out a low shriek of anger and frustration and tossed the phone back in her purse. Some days, I really want to hit your brother, she told me. He's not my brother. I disowned him a long time ago, I reminded her. Do I even want to know what he said at the end that earned him the hang-up? She shook her head. You hate him enough as it is, she said. I nodded. Well, if it's that bad, I suggest a rubber mallet to the balls. I'll let you know if I decide to try it, she promised. You know he'll be here in the morning, right? I asked her. I told him not to come, she said irritably. You also told him you were considering spending the night here to pay him back for his moment of wit. It was an empty threat, she told me. But it was delivered to an empty head, I reminded her. She considered that and rolled her eyes, picking up her phone again. Bill, stop what you're doing. Do not, under any circumstance, come down here. Peter will seriously kill you if you show up here. Go out and get drunk, or watch football on TV or something. I'll be home in a couple of days. Yes, a couple of days. I just got here today. It's a day and a half drive or longer. No, I'm not going to sleep with him. You knew that. I know what I said. I also remember what you said, and you're pissing me off. Okay, Bill, you asked for this. Peter told me that if Sabrina had asked him to, he would have buried the hatchet with you. If she'd lived, she would have pushed him to forgive you. Maybe in 5 or 6 years he'll meet someone else and she'll want him to shake your hand. But for right now, the only person who could have healed things with your brothers died on the end of your truck. You still want to drive down here and get your head blown off? She asked. I haven't asked, but he works in construction in Texas. There are rattlesnakes around here. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a gun. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a rattlesnake for that matter. Yes, I think that would be a good idea. Go have dinner with your parents and then go to that bar you like. Yes, that one. It should keep your mind off coming down here. That seemed to end the conversation, and she hung up shortly after that. He's afraid of snakes? I asked. Deathly, she chuckled. All I had to do was tell him to go hang out at a strip bar, and he's perfectly happy to let me lounge around down here with you. Always a class act, I said dryly. I won't pry, but it sounds like you've sent him out to the strippers in the past. She nodded. Bill sometimes has a problem where he says things he shouldn't, she admitted. After I'm done yelling at him, I usually throw him out of the house so I can cool off. I nodded. I'm aware of his mouth, I told her. The summer he was on the job, he spent most of his time mouthing off about his girlfriend and how she left a total chicken to be with him. She rolled her eyes. Something else I need to yell at him for, she muttered. I think that one should probably be far down on the list of reasons to put him in the doghouse, I pointed out. True, she admitted, and we lapsed into a period of silence. Can I call you? She asked when her thoughts had run their course. Just to talk? I shrugged. If it's important to you, I suppose. I don't really have much to say these days. She nodded. Hopefully, that'll change, she said. She was going to make an issue of Eve, it sounded like. I will say one thing. I'm glad you didn't speak when you called me at work. Why? She asked. I couldn't talk about Sabrina back then. If you'd said her name, I'd have gone to pieces. She nodded. I never considered that, she admitted. Now I'm glad I froze up when I called. Probably for the best, I agreed. After that, the conversation ran in circles. She told me some about her college experiences and asked about mine. This was actually the longest trip that she'd ever taken, since she'd gone to college in Denver. We talked about LA and Birmingham. I told her about the area here, and she thought it all sounded interesting. At times, I forgot about what had happened between us and chatted with her pleasantly. At other times, it was strained. We talked a little about my time with Sabrina and what she was like. We talked about the friends she'd made in their neighborhood and how my parents were doing. When I looked at the clock on the cable box, I saw that it was getting late. You have a place to stay? I asked, steering the conversation to a close. She looked sheepishly at me. Your landlady offered me a room for the night, she admitted. My stuff is already in the house. I hope that's not a problem. I shook my head. No, I'm fine with that. Heading back tomorrow? I thought I might stay a day if you wanted to show me around, she admitted, looking at me hopefully. It was Friday night, so I didn't have work to use as an excuse. I nodded. I don't really do a lot of looking around myself, I admitted. I know where the good places to eat are and where to shop. That's about it. She shrugged. I'll ask Mrs. Sanchez to suggest a few places, she promised. I should probably explain myself to her anyway. I nodded. I think she'll have some questions, and she probably won't be shy about asking either. I showed her out and then stopped the phone recording. I thought about packing the truck in the middle of the night and taking off, but I knew I wouldn't. Instead, I called home, which was now Birmingham since that's where Mike, Mary, and the kids were. Hey, little brother. Mike greeted me when he answered. You're calling late. What's up? Hi, Mike, I said with the first genuine smile since lunch started. I've had kind of a weird day and wanted to talk to you guys about it. Sounds ominous, he said. Let me get Mary. She's just checking on the monsters. Sabrina said her first swear word today, he said. Mommy suspects she knows who she heard it from, so you may be the man of the house when you get back. I may be buried in the woods somewhere. I laughed at that. You gotta be careful what you say around them now, I reminded him. He took the phone away from his ear for a moment and spoke to her to let her know I was on the phone. Put it on speaker. He should know what sort of potty mouth you've put on your daughter, she said sharply. I heard the beep and then there was Sabrina happily babbling something that sounded suspiciously like shit over and over again. Mike was screwed. If they didn't cure that soon, I might get laid again before he did. My laughter probably wasn't helping his case either. I think it's a rule that you have to laugh at your brother when something like this happens. A few minutes later, they were ready to talk, but I was still laughing. It's not funny, Peter. Mary snapped. I'm sorry, I said, forcing myself to calm down. I've had kind of a bad day, so I needed the laugh. See, Mike? Grown men can watch their language when they try, she said tartly. Yes, dear, he said contritely. I swear, I didn't teach it to her. She might just be babbling sounds on her own and keeps it up because we're reacting to it. Shut up, Mike, she said and turned her attention to me. So what happened that made your day bad? She asked me. I got a phone call at work, I said. You mean like the ones you were getting here? She asked, concerned. No, I said. This one was from Billy. What did that want? She snarled at the mention of his name. Scratch that. How did he find you? I hung up as soon as I heard his voice, I told her. How he tracked me down was a mystery to me too when I left work. I only gave the number to my landlady and only for emergencies. So what happened? Mike asked. I guess he tracked me to Mrs. Sanchez and said he was my brother and needed to get in touch with me. He made her think it was urgent, so she gave up the number. So you have no idea what he wanted? Mike asked. Nope, I said. I figured it out once Mrs. Sanchez told me that my sister was waiting for me in my apartment. Sister? Mike demanded. What the? He tailed off, rather than complete the thought with a word that would get him in more trouble. Linda, I said flatly. Shit, Mary blurted out. It would have started me laughing again, but I had too much to tell them. Yeah, I said. She drove down here to talk to me, and Leadfoot was calling to see if I'd heard from her. What did she want? Mary asked. She wanted to get a lot of guilt off her chest, express how sorry she was about Sabrina, and then she told me she was pregnant and wanted to know how I'd feel about her naming her daughter after Sabrina. What? Mary thundered. That bitch. Relax, I said soothingly. I told her she was too late, that you'd named the twins after me and Sabrina. She was surprised that you had kids. I thought you guys told the mother creature about them. We did, Mike said. She must not have shared. So she just showed up unannounced and lays that bomb on you? I told them all that we talked about, the phone calls in Birmingham and the reason, her friend tracking me down here and her phone calls to Billy. What are you gonna do? Mary asked. She asked me to take her around town tomorrow and show her the sights. Then I'll send her home and forget about her. She said she'll call from time to time, but I don't imagine that'll keep up for long. This is the most interesting thing that's happened to me in 6 months. It's not like I have a lot to talk about, and I remember her reason for leaving me was that conversations with me weren't all that fulfilling. She'll get bored and the calls will taper off. They sympathized with me and told me they wished they could be there for me. It's okay, I said softly. I think the job here is just about done. So when it is, I'll be back for a little while to rest up and then I'll start looking for work. I want to spend some time with the kids and you guys. You're always welcome, Mike told me. We're actually planning on buying a house this summer. With you and the Pierces visiting more often, we need more space. God help us when we have to put them in separate rooms. Wow, I said, my mood crashing a little. Any idea when you're planning to move? We're talking to the bank now to find out what we can afford, and then we're going to start looking for places, Mary told me. They were both excited and I was feeling, I don't know, like I was left behind, maybe. We ended the conversation and I was still trying to put my finger on what had pulled my mood down. I poured myself a shot of tequila and tried to make sense of it. I hadn't felt like this when we'd moved there or when I'd come here, but now that they were putting down roots, I felt adrift. I finally decided that it was the house. They'd started their family, Billy and Linda had started theirs. If Sabrina had lived, we'd have started ours by now. She'd have her master's now, same as me. We'd both be working and building a life together. I slugged back another shot and grimaced. I never fussed with salt or lemon, just drank the shit straight. I didn't drink it to feel good, so the gut-twisting effect suited me fine. I was drinking to get in touch with my demons. God, I missed her. I sometimes had to strain to remember her voice, and tonight was one of those nights. I was ashamed of myself. I promised I'd never forget, and here I was trying to remember her laugh. I should hear that laugh every day. I should see her smiling at our baby. I should be listening to her talk about her day. We should be living in a house of our own, with kids and joy and a future. Instead, I was sitting on the floor of a garage apartment, drinking alone and crying for a life that would never be. I lost myself in sorrow, weeping turning to sobbing, sobbing turning to whimpering as I daydreamed about her on our wedding day, about holding her hand as a doctor told her to push, about listening to her sing in the nursery and 100 other happy memories that we'd never have. I cried because she was gone and because I wasn't. I wished I was driving, or that we'd gone to the movies or a club, or anywhere but home that night. It was the middle of the night when I felt a hand on mine. I looked up and she was there. She was beautiful and perfect and I bawled when I saw her. I'm so sorry, I said brokenly. I can't remember. I try so hard to remember your voice, but it won't come. It's all so dim now. I don't want to forget. Help me. Peter, she whispered sympathetically and sat down with me on the floor. You don't have to remember, she said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. She wrapped her arm around me, and it felt so good that I sobbed with fresh grief. I wanted her to hold me all the time. Peter, 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 she said slowly. What am I going to do with you? We can't keep meeting like this. Here, dry your eyes, she said and passed me a tissue. I didn't want to, but I dried my eyes and slowly calmed my breathing. I took a few deep breaths and then looked at her again. I'm sorry, I told her again. I know you told me to move on, but you're still holding back, she said, finishing the thought for me. I know. I hoped you'd find someone, but, babe, you have to leave the house to meet people. They're out there, you know? A whole wide world full of them, and one lucky girl is looking up at the stars right now and hoping tomorrow is the day that she meets the guy she'll spend the rest of her life with. Okay, so maybe she's looking up at her bedroom ceiling and pleasing while she fantasizes about him, she said to get a laugh out of me. She punched my shoulder lightly. My point is that she's never gonna find her guy if you're here with me. I nodded miserably. They all wanted me to find someone and move on. I took another deep breath. I'll try, I promised. Not good enough, she said sternly. Commit to success. Don't try, persevere. I love you, babe, but I'm not coming back until you have good news for me. No more. No more booze, no more dreaming about the crash. No more late-night visits from me. I'm putting my foot down. You're 25 now. You're still young enough to have the life you want. You just have to stop wanting to die to get it. How do I do that? I asked her. There's a hole in the middle of my chest. Then fill it. Pete, we were together for a year. You've been mourning for 2. What happened to your wisdom that recovery takes half the length of the relationship? I smiled in spite of myself. That was bullshit, I argued. I wasn't ready to date. And now you are, she said. Let Linda set you up with her friend or start looking around here more seriously. Hell, I bet Mrs. Sanchez could use a strong man around the house. You could play horsey with her for a little while. It'd be good for both of you. Make her feel young and remind you that you're still alive. I laughed at that a little. I do have a thing for older women now, I reminded her. Her birthday was a month before mine and I teased her about being the first older woman I dated. Well, if that's your pleasure, isn't there a nursing home on your way to work? She teased. You could get one of the old gals to take her teeth out and pull down those sexy polyester slacks. Oh, stop. I laughed. It seemed like forever since I'd laughed. If that's what it takes to get you to stop dwelling on it and move on, then I'm all for it, she said and put the cap on the tequila. But I mean it. This is the last visit. The next time I come back, I want to hear about her, and I want you to tell me that she makes you happy. I can't make you happy, Pete. I can only hurt you now, so I have to go away. Don't worry about me, she said with a serene smile. I've got a book to read. She smirked and punched my shoulder again. She got up to leave and picked up the tequila bottle. You know, if Linda had broken up with you when things started with her and Billy, this is probably how things would have been between you and her. What should I do about her? I asked. She shrugged. I think she means it when she says she's sorry. You've held the grudge a long time. Let it go. Be friends or not, but I think you made a good start toward letting go with her. Your brother's going to be a little more difficult. You still blame him for what happened to me. I nodded. I do. Remember that phrase? She teased me. You're going to need to say it in front of a crowd someday. She turned serious. You know that I should have checked the intersection before I hit the gas, right? She pointed out. You're saying that it was your fault? I gaped at her. I'm saying that I was with my guy and I was in love and distracted and in a hurry to take him home and show him how much I love him and I wasn't paying attention. Sort of like how Billy was looking at Linda and hurrying home to make love to her. Your history makes you want to hate him, but if it had been Mike in that truck, you'd have let it go by now. If it had been a total stranger, you'd have let it go, but by random chance, it was Billy. Poor dumb scumsucker just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Deep down, you know that he didn't mean to run the light. Just like deep down, you know that Linda belongs with him. I'm not saying you have to be pals and throw family barbecues, but you could probably throw the poor guy a bone. I shrugged, but my face softened a little from the normal snarl that I had on my face for when Billy's name came up in conversation. She nodded. You'll be okay, Pete, she told me. Bring me good news and we'll talk more. Until then, she lifted the bottle of tequila. I'll hold on to this until then. I love you, babe. Now go make me proud. She grinned at me and then disappeared down the stairs. The dream faded then, but it turned into other dreams. I didn't dream of the accident or anything that really made sense, just jumbles of events and places and people. I dreamed about Denver and LA and Birmingham and Austin and places we'd been on vacation when I was a child. I woke up early, the floor being exceptionally uncomfortable. I was stiff and hungover and not really at my best. I decided to clean up before Linda banged on the door to get me started on the promise tour. I picked up the glass I'd been drinking from and looked around for the bottle. For the life of me, I couldn't locate it. It wasn't on the table or the floor. I moved the sofa to look under it. I pulled out the cushions to see if I'd stuffed it in there, but no matter where I looked, it wasn't there. I searched the kitchen, wondering if I'd put it out there or put it away in my drunken stupor, but it was just gone. I thought about Sabrina picking it up and taking it with her and shook my head. There had to be an explanation. I'd find it somewhere in the next few days. I started the day the way nature had intended after a night of shooting tequila. I threw up. Then I got showered and shaved and started coffee. I wanted to go back to bed, but I suspected that I wasn't going to be allowed to indulge. I was right. Linda showed up as I was starting to mix batter for the waffle maker. You okay? She asked when she saw my face. Yeah. I had a rough night, I told her. Sorry, she apologized. My visit probably set it off. I heard some last night. I had the window open. You must have too. I frowned. Yeah, Mary informed me that I talk in my sleep when Sabrina comes to visit. Does that happen a lot? She asked, curious. Most of the time, I just dream about the accident. A couple of times, though, she's come to talk to me. The first time was just after the twins were born. Last night was the second time. She nodded. I could tell that she wanted to ask, but knew that my acceptance of her presence was delicate. Still, I'm sorry that I caused that. Not your fault, I said lightly. We needed to talk anyway. She had something important to tell me. I put a waffle in front of her. I didn't know if you'd started with the cravings yet, so it's just plain, I told her. Thanks, she said gratefully and watched me pour out batter for a second one. Can I ask what she had to say? I chuckled. Mostly that she's sick of my shit, I said lightly. I felt different this morning, like the relief after an infected tooth is pulled. The pain was still there, but it was like the pressure had faded and I was actually healing. She told me to stop living in that moment and find someone to build a life with. She tried to tell me that the first time, but I wasn't ready to listen. I think that's good advice, she said carefully. She was still trying to avoid angering me. You feel like you're ready to take it? I thought about that and nodded. She pointed out that we were together for a year, and I've been mourning for 2 now. She also told me that she believes you when you say you're sorry about all of this. She pointed out that if we'd broken up when you and Billy first got together, we'd probably have been good friends. She also told me that I've been carrying the grudge too long at this point, and I should let it go. She gasped a little at that. Really? She asked, surprised and hopeful. I nodded and pulled the second waffle out of the maker. You want another one? I asked. She looked at her empty plate and nodded. I slid it onto her plate and started a third one. I was familiar with the appetite of the expectant mother. She wasn't sure if we could salvage a friendship out of it, but she thought I'd held on to the anger for long enough and I should let it go. I'd like us to be able to talk, at least, she admitted. I hope we can be friends, but I know Billy's always going to be a sore spot. We'll see, I said softly. She gave me some things to think about in regards to Billy too. Like what? She asked. She pointed out that I'd have forgiven anyone else in the world by now. She also told me that she was distracted that night too. She'd normally check the intersection before she started through, even if the light was green. She was focused on me like he was focused on you. So she pushed you toward reconciling with your brother after all, she said, sounding surprised. I took my waffle from the maker and sat down to join her and eat. Yeah, she at least gave me enough to think about to make it a possibility someday, I admitted. Mary said that it's possible that it's my subconscious trying to tell me things, but I like to think that she does come to visit from time to time. It's comforting. She nodded. I can understand that, she said softly. I honestly never believed in that sort of thing, but the change in your outlook this morning is pretty compelling, she admitted. You didn't come to check on me through the night, did you? I asked, thinking of the missing tequila bottle. She shook her head. No, she assured me. I didn't think you'd appreciate me letting myself in to see if you were okay. Besides, sneaking off to your apartment in the middle of the night is about the worst decision I could make, even if it wasn't for anything sordid. Why? I shrugged. Nothing important, I said. Something was out of place this morning, and I didn't remember touching it. She shook her head. I heard you talking for a while, and then you quieted down. No one went out to your door. I would have heard them. I nodded. Like I said, not important. I must have moved it in my sleep. I smiled, thinking that it was proof that she'd really been here. But I wasn't about to share that, at least not yet. After breakfast, I showed her around town, took her out to see the job site where there was a showroom home that was open to the public. I showed her the automation, and she was really impressed with it. I wish I could get you to come back to Denver. I'd love to have this in our house, and now is the perfect time to install it since we're renovating, she said wistfully. The equipment isn't all that cheap, I admitted. I look at some of the features and think that I'd use them just about every day. Other parts probably won't ever get used by me. Being able to turn on lights remotely might be useful when you're on vacation, but then again, who wants to be tied to playing with that when they're trying to relax? We talked about the features that we both liked, and then went to a barbecue place for lunch. Linda was definitely eating for 2, enthusiastically putting away an impressive load of ribs and a slab of their chocolate cake for dessert. I was sick just watching. Afterwards, we went to an open-air swap meet that was a little bit of everything. She picked up decorating accents, but I didn't see anything that caught my eye. There was a lot of stuff that would be great for collectors, but I was too used to moving around. Packing light was the only way to survive. I looked at some motorcycle parts, but I didn't know enough about bikes to build my own, and I didn't know anyone around here that could give me pointers. We ended the day by going back to the house where we had dinner with Mrs. Sanchez. She was curious if we were okay, and seemed relieved that it was fine. She'd been good to me, so I wasn't about to hold it against her even if it had turned into all-out war. Linda left early the next day with a hug and a promise to call, but not too often. I don't want to make a pest of myself, she said. I'll let your mother know that you're doing okay. You're right. She does worry. I nodded and watched her get in her car and drive away, waving as she did. I spent some time with Mrs. Sanchez, letting her know that I was okay and that things were okay. I called Mike to let him know that the rest of her stay had been uneventful. I told him I had some other news, but I didn't want to talk about it over the phone. He seemed a little unnerved about what I might want to tell him that I couldn't say on the phone, but I honestly didn't want to talk about Sabrina's visit on the phone. I returned to work on Monday, and I nodded to Dave as I was unloading my stuff from the truck to let him know that I was doing better. He didn't ask, just nodded and went back into the office. Life was pretty much the same as it was before, except that I made a point to go places now. I started making it a routine to go a different place each night during the week and rotate. On Mondays, I went to a park and spent some time walking and getting to know the area. Sometimes I'd bring a book and read on a bench, but I made myself a fixture on Mondays. Tuesdays, I went to a popular coffee house where there was always something culturally going on, whether it was poetry readings or a live band or an improv performance. My Wednesday nights, I took in a movie at the mall multiplex. I spent Thursdays with a few of the guys from work, having a beer and leering at strippers. Okay, sue me. I hadn't seen a naked girl since the summer before I left for college. I wasn't likely to meet the future Mrs. Hamilton here, but I could at least make certain I knew where all the parts were when she came along. My Fridays were the night that I went out to serious nightclubs, looking for girls that might be out for a dance and a drink and maybe a little more. I left Saturday open and frequently revisited the places I'd go on other nights. All in all, it was a full schedule. I found that the coffee house was relatively full no matter what was going on. The park was popular on the weekend with families and the movies were swamped with school kids, so I often found myself hitting the strip clubs or the nightclubs for lack of a better option. I didn't really meet anyone, but I took Sabrina's words to heart and persevered. Mrs. Sanchez noticed and talked to me about the change one Wednesday night. I'd had to tell her a lot of my details after Linda's visit, so she knew about Sabrina and how she died. When she heard about the dreams that I had where Sabrina talked to me, she nodded. Her grandmother had come from Old Mexico and had been deeply superstitious. My grandmother would have wanted to know every detail of your visions, she told me. Guidance from the spirits of the departed is something to be respected, she taught me. She taught me a lot about this kind of spiritual visitation. Tell me about the visions. I'm not my grandmother, but I'll tell you what I can. I told her about the accident in detail as a starting point, and that I would dream of that night often. I told her about the night the dream changed to her standing and looking at the babies and her desire for me to move on and find someone else. I told her about my initial problems with Linda and Billy and being injured at work by Billy. Then I told her about the last visitation from Sabrina. I was a little embarrassed about repeating what Sabrina had said about her, but I included it since she'd wanted me to include as much detail as I could recall. I've searched the apartment at least 4 times since then, moved all the furniture, even looked in the toilet tank. But there's no sign of the bottle, I told her at the end. She crossed herself and looked even more interested. I've never heard of a spirit that takes items from the living, she said. She sounds like a guardian angel, though. Sometimes the spirits of loved ones can watch over us. She carefully avoided mention of Sabrina's recommendation about her, but we were both uncomfortably aware of the implications. It sounds like she's becoming frantic for you to live your life. I think it would cause her great sadness to see you continue as you have. You should heed her words. I nodded. I do, I told her and looked down, smiling a little at Sabrina's reaction when I said that to her. I've been getting out a lot more and taking part in life as much as I can. She patted my hand. I know you've been getting out more, and that's fantastic. Sometimes it was a struggle to even get you to come down to join us for dinner. Now the problem is catching you before you're back out the door. I'm sorry, I said. The only night that I really have solid dinner plans is Thursdays. The rest of the time, I can be here, I told her. Since it was summer, there weren't a lot of students around. It was just the 2 of us for the past month. I hadn't realized that she'd been trying to get me to spend more time with her. She scoffed. You don't need to change anything for my sake, she said with a smile. I'm glad you're waking up finally. What you've told me is that your life has been a long nightmare. I hope that this means you're ready to leave the nightmare behind you. Me too, I said with a slight smile. So, we started having dinner together. Sometimes, she cooked. Sometimes I did, and sometimes we went out. I'd take her out dancing on Fridays, and she'd come with me to the movies on Wednesdays, and once in a while, she'd join me at one of the other places. She'd never been to the coffee house and enjoyed it. She took me to a few places she liked, broadening my horizons and introducing me to people. We never crossed the line and ended up in bed with each other, but we became very close. I told her I suspected that my job wasn't going to last, and she admitted that was often the way things went in construction. Her brother worked at jobs like mine. As summer dragged on, faces started disappearing from the crew. We all knew the job was just about done. People drifted off to other jobs as good offers came in. That was good for the remaining crew. As people moved on, it drew out the work just a little bit more for the rest of us. I ended up doing some general construction toward the end, painting and putting down molding around door frames and other little touches. We'd had a crew of 50 when I'd arrived here, and the site had been filled with the sounds of power tools and trucks. Now, on the last day, there were only 6 of us and Dave. His job was golden. He was moving on to a contract in Georgia and taking 3 of the guys with him when he went. "Sorry I couldn't take you, Ham," he said. "What we're doing is general contract work. Nothing I could justify your salary to do." We'd finished the last touches at lunchtime, but we were hanging around and shooting the shit since we were paid for the day. He handed out the last paychecks and a round of bonuses for those of us that had stayed and surprised us with a couple of flats of beer. We all had our trucks backed up to the office and we were sitting on the stairs or the tailgates and talking about what was next for us. "My brother lives in Birmingham," I told them. "He just bought a house, so I'm going to stay with him for a while and help him get it in shape. Then I'm going to start looking to use my degree rather than my hands." That got a little laughter. I was well liked at least in part because I was a guy with a degree that didn't think he was too good for the work here. Most of these guys had gone to a trade school to be here and weren't cut out for much more than that. "I'm surprised that you haven't invented an app and started making millions," one of them said. I thought about that and nodded. "I suppose I could start working on some for construction sites," I admitted. That started some of the guys offering suggestions. I knew that there were super durable phones now for people that worked in job sites, and there were even tools that connected to phones that were getting some popularity. I had a laser thermometer for mine, and there were a number of tools, like a rangefinder and a laser level that I thought were a little too situational for my liking. I used my thermometer all the time though. I'd check the temperature of my door handle before getting in my truck, check the temperature of the meat in the cooler at the market before I'd buy it, check the heat coming off the driveway before I decided whether I was putting on shoes to get the paper or not. It was incredibly useful day to day. That got us talking about software to carry blueprints and job site inventory systems, and a dozen other ideas that ranged from startlingly good to just plain silly. I decided to start working on it in my spare time, and I promised to let them know if I came up with anything useful. So, we drank, we talked shit, swapped stories, and passed that last afternoon pleasantly. Inevitably, beers and guys combined to lead the conversation to bragging about women. The first couple of times it came around to me, I managed to be up getting another beer or letting go of the last one. My luck couldn't hold though. "What about you, Ham?" Dave asked me. "No tales from the ones that got away?" I shook my head. "Not really. Only had 2 women in my life. First one is married to my brother now. Took a long time to get over that." "What about the second?" he asked. I shook my head. "Car crash," I said. "Same brother was driving the other car." "What are the odds, right?" "No shit?" he asked. "That's rough." "Yeah. She died 2 years ago. I'm just starting to think about dating again. Family reunions are now just me and my other brother." "Damn," one of the guys said, and that brought the mood down considerably. I decided I needed to help it along, so I told them about the last time Sabrina had come to visit me. The next morning, I couldn't find the bottle anywhere. My apartment was locked from the inside and I was alone, but that bottle was just gone, like it had never existed. It was a great story. They looked like they were a little creeped out by it, but I knew that the tale would spread the next time they needed a ghost story. It was 90 degrees out and the only thing sweating more than us was the cans of beer, but I saw each of them shiver as the tingles climbed their spines. I grinned and hoped that Sabrina was watching. She loved a good story. "Man, that gave me the heebie-jeebies," Larry said. He'd been one of the first guys hired, and he stuck it out to the end with the rest of us. He looked up at the sun and crumpled his beer can. "I think I'm gonna go, though. It's almost quitting time anyway. Fellas, it's been a pleasure working with you. I'll see some of you in Macon. The rest of you, I hope you do well, and maybe I'll see you again on the job." We all shook hands and then he got in his truck and took off for the last time. A couple of the other guys were interested in doing the same and said their own farewells. Finally, it was just me and Dave. "Go on home, Ham," he said lightly. "I'm just locking up here and then the job's done." "Yeah," I said and looked around. "Feels weird to see the site this quiet, you know?" "Yeah. We've been raising a racket for a while," he agreed. "There's still half a case of beer left. Take it with you." "You don't want it?" I asked, surprised. "Nah. I'm flying out to Georgia in the morning. Already got everything packed and ready." I nodded and followed him into the office, collecting the last of the beer. He followed me back to my truck with a large box, sliding it into the bed. "What's this?" I asked. "Just a little something to help with your brother's place," he said and put a finger to his lips. He opened the flap and there was a bunch of the gear that I'd need to help install the automation in Mike's place. He beckoned me back into the office and added a couple more boxes and a spool of the cable I used to connect everything. "You sure this is kosher?" I asked. "Don't care. I already wrote it off as used," he said with a shrug. "No one here can use it. You might as well hang on to it." "Thanks, Dave," I said and shook his hand again. "Thanks for all your hard work," he answered. "I emailed you a recommendation from the company and another one from me personally." I think you can count on Larry to recommend you to everyone he can just in case you use your voodoo powers to put a curse on him." He smirked. Larry was a good worker, but could have thin skin at times. The bottle was a nice touch. I cocked my head and smiled. "You don't believe me," I said, chuckling. "It actually happened. I scoured the apartment for a month looking for it. Went through the trash, and it was just gone. I thought I must have moved it in my drunken stupor, but I couldn't figure out where I put it." He looked at me funny. "No shit?" "No shit," I promised. I might bullshit Larry just for the fun of it, but no, this is on the level. If there's an explanation, I want to know what it is too. He nodded, and we said goodbye. I packed the boxes a little better so they wouldn't slide and put the beer in my toolbox for the trip home. When I got home, I took the boxes into the apartment and then took the beer up to the fridge. I never drank the hard stuff anymore, giving away the last of my collection to Mrs. Sanchez after that night. I showered and changed, coming down for dinner and letting her know that the job was done. She nodded and smiled sadly. "I'm gonna miss you, Ham," she told me. "If I was a little younger, or you were a little older, I'd have been interested in playing horsey with you, like your guardian angel suggested." "I'm gonna miss you too," I said, giving her a hug. "I don't think you're too old to play horsey, though. Old enough to be your mother." She laughed and caressed my face. "Find your beloved," she implored me. "She's out there. You did your best to find her here, but you never managed to connect with anyone. You'll find her, though." "I will," I promised and squeezed her tight. "Keep a bed for me in case I pass this way again?" I asked lightly. "Always. Maybe mine if I'm not too old to play horsey," she teased. We laughed and made dinner together. I hadn't made definite plans yet, but Mike knew I was coming soon. After dinner, I normally went out clubbing, but tonight, I was calling him to let him know what was going on. We talked pleasantly through dinner, and I promised to keep in touch by email and phone as often as I could. We'd become very good friends over the last few months since Linda's visit. After dinner, we cleaned up and then I went upstairs to start packing things up. The dishes, pots, and pans were all hers. I was leaving my waffle iron since they were relatively cheap and could be picked up anywhere. The furniture was hers, so the only things I really had to worry about were clothes, some personal belongings, and the stuff from the bathroom. I called the house and talked to them. I told them I was taking a week here to say goodbye, and then I'd call them back the day before I hit the road. It was a 2-day stretch, so I wasn't in any hurry. I told them I had the gear to install some automation in their house if they wanted it. Mike was skeptical, but Mary got her way and I was committed to spending the rest of summer crawling around and putting in new systems whether he wanted them or not. I said goodbye to a few people I was friendly with at the hangouts I frequented. Some of the ladies at the strip club made sad noises. I was a decent tipper and never tried to grab what I wasn't supposed to touch. Part of that was I saw one guy get creamed and arrested for doing it, and partly it was because I wasn't that kind of guy. My last night in Austin, Mrs. Sanchez and I went out dancing like most Fridays. She liked to dance, but I'd been hopeless. She taught me a lot, and I wished I could pay her back. She always seemed to enjoy her nights out with me, but she always made sure to end them at the door, no matter how flushed and clingy she was by the time I made sure she got inside. This night, though, she was drinking a lot more than normal, and she was touching a lot more than she usually did. I figured tonight was her last night with me, so she could drink to her heart's content and be as affectionate as she wanted. By the time we closed out the bar, she was ripped. I had to help her to her car, had to help her into it, which afforded me a very good view of her treasures as dignity abandoned her. I tugged her skirt back down from where it had hiked up, got her belted in and started home. My truck was mostly packed for tomorrow. I had the crew cab packed with the boxes and most of my clothes. All I had was an overnight bag and my bathroom stuff to toss in the truck. My toolbox was an immense metal beast that I couldn't lift. It was bolted in place and wasn't moving without tools or superpowers. If someone was going to steal it, they were welcome to it. I wasn't going to object to someone strong enough to move it, so I made sure to park her car so that I could get the truck out in the morning. I brought her to her door, but there was no way that she could make it on her own. I fished in her purse for the keys and got the door open, but she was going to collapse as soon as I let her go. I sighed and helped her inside. I got her up to bed and was going to leave her there, but I couldn't. I sighed and got her shoes off, and then looked around for whatever she wore to bed usually. I found a collection of night shirts hanging on the back of the door, so I picked one and got her changed. By this point, she was mostly passed out, with the occasional mumble to tell me that she wasn't completely asleep. I got her tucked in, and then I decided to help out a little more. I got her a bucket from downstairs in case she got sick through the night and was about to leave when she opened her eyes. "Don't go," she said and held her hand out to me. She really was a beautiful woman, and I'd been tempted to make a pass at her, but there was no part of me that wanted drunken sex. I took her hand and kissed it tenderly. I don't think either of us are in any shape to keep the night going, I pointed out. No, just stay with me, she asked. It's been so long since my Luis passed on. I sometimes miss his arms around me. I nodded and figured that it was harmless enough. I stripped down to my boxers and slid into bed behind her, the two of us used to the feel of someone to hold on to at night. I was awakened in the middle of the night by her heaving into the bucket I'd left for her. I sat up and held her hair for her while she was sick, and then I took the bucket to the bathroom, got rid of the contents and rinsed it out before bringing her back a glass of water and a washcloth in case she needed to be cleaned up. She was grateful for both and was back to sleep before I took the glass and cloth back to the bathroom. I brought the bucket back just in case and then went back to sleep myself. The next time I woke up, I was alone. It was morning and I could smell breakfast. I was just stretching when she came in with a cup of coffee for me. No, don't get up, she told me. It's your last day. I'm making you breakfast in bed. She smiled and didn't seem to be any the worse for wear after last night. It's almost ready. I'll be back in a few minutes. I sipped my coffee and slowly woke up. I could get used to starting the day like this. She appeared a few minutes later with a steak and egg breakfast, toast, hash browns, and juice. She put the tray on my lap and then slid back into bed with me. You have a long drive today, she reminded me. You need a good breakfast before you get on the road. She kissed my cheek. Thanks for taking care of me last night, she said, slightly embarrassed. I don't normally go that crazy. It's okay, I said. I was glad I was able to be here for you. I kind of got the impression that you were going a little harder because I was leaving. She nodded. I'm gonna miss you, she admitted and took a piece of toast from the tray, nibbling on it. Luis and I never had kids, but if we had, I'd like to hope they'd have turned out like you. She smiled at me and I smiled back, touched. I'd shed a lot of tears, but when my eyes misted over, it wasn't out of pain or sorrow or loss. I was deeply affected by what she'd said to me. I carefully put the tray aside and then wrapped her up in a hug. When everything happened with my brother, I sort of lost my mother. My father was never any great prize, but I've missed having someone like that in my life. She hugged me back just as tight. I remember that the last time I hugged my mother, I'd felt nothing. There was none of the love that a hug from a mother should be filled with. I found that feeling laying in the bed of a woman I'd have been happy to have called my lover if things had been just a touch different. We stayed that way for a few minutes, and then she pulled back and kissed me on the cheek. Eat up, she told me with a smile. You don't want it to get cold. She ate most of the toast, and I figured that her stomach was a little too tender for more than that. I focused on the rest, and we shared the OJ. My life had started to mend this past year. I wasn't dwelling on Sabrina. I'd found a woman that I could think of as a mother more than my own. I'd come a long way toward forgiving Linda and Billy, although I still wasn't sure I could ever see him without wanting him dead. When breakfast was finished, I gave her a longer, more lingering hug. I would have been very happy to have you teach me how to please a woman again, I whispered to her. She laughed and bit my ear lightly. I'd have ruined you for other women, she assured me. Don't forget to call me often, she begged. I'll miss you terribly. You need to find a new dance partner yourself, I told her. I don't want you to sit at home all the time. She laughed. So you're gonna be my guardian angel now? It's time we both started living again, I said ardently. I want you to find someone and maybe come up with a last-minute ankle-biter of your own. She smiled at me and patted my cheek. Being a mother is one that I missed out on, she told me with a rueful shrug. I stopped about a year ago. Maybe God was telling me that the son for me had already arrived. I hugged her tighter, and she held me just as hard. I finally had to let her go, but I kind of wanted to delay my departure now that we were talking about it. You'd better believe it, I told her. You're stuck with me now. Good, she said. When you meet your special lady, I want to be invited to the wedding. You'd better be there. I smiled and kissed her very gently on the lips. I love you, Rosa, I told her tearfully. I love you too, Peter, she said. She'd always called me Ham, but this was a very special morning. She shooed me off to shower, change and finish packing while she worked around the house. She had some students that were coming in the next few days, so I didn't have to worry that she'd be alone. She was only taking on women this year, claiming that they were less trouble. I was relieved about that. I didn't like the thought of not being here if she had trouble with one of the tenants. I showered and cleaned up the shower afterwards. I started the washer as soon as the towels were ready to go in and then got dressed and looked through the rest of the house for anything I might have missed. I knew Rosa would take care of me and send along anything I missed, but I wanted the place to be ready for her to move someone in right away. I put the towels in the dryer and then started taking the last of my bags out to the truck. I brought the keys back to the house and told her I'd left the dryer running with the last towels I'd used. You didn't have to do that, she said. I was going in later today to strip the bed and wash the sheets anyway. Crap. I meant to do that. I berated myself. Sorry to leave that with you, I told her. Also, I left my waffle iron in the kitchen. Don't send it to me. I left it here on purpose. She nodded. Okay, she said and kissed my cheek, wiping away the lipstick when she pulled back, just like a mother would. Get on the road and call me when you get where you're going tonight, so I don't worry. I smiled and hugged her one last time. We should have had this talk months ago, I said. Yeah, she admitted. But we'll have plenty of time to catch up later, she promised. After that, I had to go. She had Mike and Mary's new address and the phone number there. I got on the road and immediately wished I wasn't leaving. I turned on the radio and listened to take my mind off saying goodbye to a sweet lady who'd become very important to me this past year. After a while, I stopped being sad about it and looked forward to seeing the kids again and their parents to a slightly lesser extent. I made it through to Jackson, Mississippi that night. I called Rosa to let her know I'd made it safely and then called Mike to let him know the same thing. You're practically next door, Mike told me. You couldn't drive another 3 hours? I could. I chuckled. I'm taking my time though. The drive's been pretty good. I'll leave early tomorrow and be there for lunch, I promised. All right, he said. We'll have your room ready when you get here and after lunch, I'll put you to work. So much for my vacation, I said with a laugh. I've been waiting for you before I do a lot of the drywall, he admitted. The place looks like a disaster zone right now, but I've done a lot of the work already. Okay, I said. Does Mary have a place to take the kids while we work? Sheetrock dust can't be good for them. Of course, he said, disappointed I hadn't thought he'd think of it. We're still renting the old apartment for now. We're hoping to be into the house at the end of the month with some regular help. Gotcha, I laughed. Slave labor, reporting for duty. Now you're catching on, he told me. We hung up and I called Linda after a moment's hesitation. She knew I was done in Austin, but not that I was on the road at the moment. I told her that and caught her up on a few things. I didn't tell her how close I'd gotten with Rosa in the past couple of weeks, but she knew that I'd been closer to her since the weekend she'd come to see me. We talked for about 20 minutes, and then I settled back to watch some movies on my laptop, and then I turned in early. I was checked out and back on the road before the sun rose the next morning. I was glad to have my sunglasses because as soon as the sun crested the horizon, it was like a laser beam right into the back of my skull. I got into Birmingham and went to the apartment first to drop off my clothes. Mike and Mary were both surprised to see me so early and came to hug me tightly before I could collect hugs from the kids. I took a moment to call Rosa and let her know I'd arrived safe, and she told me to keep calling her so she'd know I was doing okay. I'd brought presents for the kids, but those were packed in my luggage, so they'd have to wait for tonight. We weren't expecting you until later, Mary told me. I got an early start, I told them. Mike was whining about how much work there was, so I'm here to save the day. He punched me in the arm and called me a name that Sabrina immediately copied. Mary was not amused. We got out of there, and I followed him to the new place so we could start working. It turned out that the house was in good shape for me to wire everything. Mike really had ripped out most of the old sheetrock to install new insulation, upgrade the wiring, and replace anything that didn't look right when he gave it the stink eye. I'd also been doing this for a year, so the installation went pretty quickly. I had it wired in a couple of hours. God, he said when I was done. That was fast. We did 300 houses this past year, I told him. I could do this in my sleep. He nodded, and we got to work on the rest of what he needed to do. Mary called us for lunch, and we locked up the house. We left my truck there and drove back together. You look like you're more comfortable on the job site than in a desk chair, he commented on the way home. Maybe so, but it'd be a nice change to do something with my degree, I said lightly. I was taking the opportunity to look around as we drove, getting a first look at some of the things that had changed since I'd lived here. You also seem more relaxed than when you left. What's that about? That's some news I have for after the kids go to sleep tonight, I told him. Are you sure you're going to be okay with them in with you? He asked. Yeah, I said. I haven't seen them in ages. I want to be close to them. He nodded, and we drove in silence after that. We had a nice lunch. Mary had made soup and sandwiches for us. She'd strained the kids' soup, so there was nothing for them to choke on, and she was feeding them when we came in. The kids were generally well behaved, but the arrival of Daddy made them hyper, and Mary had a hell of a time getting them to settle down and eat. Fortunately, that wore them out for their afternoon nap, giving Mary a little time to relax before they resumed their siege. We got back to work and managed to get a lot done. Mike looked pleased. He also looked relieved. What's wrong? I asked him late in the day as we were installing sheetrock in Petey's room. I've been trying to get this done, he said. Things are a little tight with us paying for the apartment and the house. I'll be glad when we can let go of the apartment. I nodded. Mary back to work yet? I asked. No, he said, his tone telling me that there was more going on than just stretched finances. Okaway, I said awkwardly. Something wrong? He sighed. With everything that's going on, our sex life hasn't been what it used to be, he admitted. It's starting to get old. Poor Muffin, I said dryly. My last sex was with Linda, and you know how long ago that was. You knew she was going to be slow to get her libido back after the kids, right? How do you know about her libido? He wanted to know. Internet, I answered. Her body's still healing. She launched a pair of footballs out of her body. It definitely left some damage. You guys are also overwhelmed. Once we're moved in here, I can be babysitter for a while. That should help you get some pants-off romance. That'd be nice, he admitted. So you and Sabrina never. That night was gonna be our first, I told him, working steadily. Oh, he said. So, you didn't get a little revenge when Linda came to visit? Nope. Wasn't even tempted. I think Billy was frantic that I might give her some deep love, but there's none for her. Good call on that, he said. Even if you hate his guts, if you tapped that, you'd be as guilty as he was. We got back to work after that, and finished with the sheetrock in both kids' rooms before it was time to call it a day. We went back to the apartment and got showered and changed. I snagged the bathroom first and went to pick up dinner while Mike was getting cleaned up. I got barbecue and the 5 of us sat down with Mommy and Daddy each feeding little bits to one of the kids. They grinned at me as they ate, excited to have me back. After dinner, they got their presents, a pair of stuffed cows that I'd gotten at a restaurant in Austin that was supposed to be famous for their beef. They were put to bed not long after that, and the grown-ups settled down with some drinks to talk. Mary was nursing a glass of wine. I had a beer and Mike mixed himself a rum and Coke, offering me one. No, thanks, I said. I gave it up. Since when? He asked with a snort. I shrugged. You remember when Linda came to visit me? I asked. Yeah, he said, coming back with his drink and sitting with Mary. I was glad to see her curl up with him. What he'd said earlier made me worry about their marriage. Well, I told you I had some more news, but that I wasn't talking about it on the phone. I reminded him. Yeah, I remember that now. You were pretty cryptic about it. I nodded. I got a visit from Sabrina, I told them. Mary fixed me with an interested stare. What did she say this time? She asked, wondering how this news was different. She said some of the same things, I admitted. I really wasn't making a fair attempt to get out there and find someone and she called me on it. I asked her about Linda, and she suggested that I let it go. It's been 6 years now, and if she's put up with Billy for this long, they really are in love. She nodded. That's not terrible advice, but it's only part of why you hate them now. I nodded. She had some things to say about that night too, I said. She reminded me that if she'd checked the intersection, we would have avoided the accident. She said she was distracted though. She was in love and focused on me. She told me that's how the accident happened. She was focused on me, Billy was focused on Linda, and we both entered the intersection at the same time. In a hurry to get home. Mary nodded. Does that mean you're in the mood to forgive Billy? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. She told me that if it had been you guys in the truck and not Billy and Linda, I'd have already gotten over it. She said I'd have forgiven just about anyone in the world except Billy. It was a lot to think about. Mike nodded. So where does that leave them? He asked. I talk to Linda from time to time, I said. I don't feel quite the same surge of rage when I think about Billy either. I don't know if that's the beginning of forgiving them or the final product, but it's a pretty big step. Yeah, Mary said. But what does that have to do with you not drinking? I told them about the rest of the dream, about Sabrina picking up the bottle and taking it with her when she left, and about not being able to find the bottle after that. I searched for a month solid and it never turned up. I moved the furniture, searched the trash, checked every nook and cranny, and it's just gone. And no one else was there? Mike asked. I shook my head. The apartment was locked from the inside. Spooky, he commented wisely. So that means you've sworn off the hard stuff, huh? Yep, I confirmed. She asked me to stop, so I gave it up. You were drinking a fair bit? Mary asked sympathetically. Not really, I said. Once or twice a month I'd sit down and drink with memories. She nodded. That's still troubling that you were drinking alone. I guess she thought so too, I agreed. In any case, Linda didn't believe in that sort of thing before, but seeing the change in me overnight makes her consider it. We sat up and talked for a while longer, and then I called it a night. I told them that I'd handle the kids overnight, and they should try to sleep. I was up several times through the night, with one or the other, but I was glad to do it. I changed muddy diapers, soothed nightmares, and sang softly to get them to stop fussing and go back to sleep. In the morning, I turned the kids over to Mary so I could start working on the house while Mike was at work. We still had a lot of work before we could move in, and I intended to get as much of it done as I could. I finished putting up sheetrock in the other 3 bedrooms and started working in the rest of the house. Mike had walked me through his plans, and we were behind the 8 ball. I sank into the work and only paused to answer my phone when it rang. "You coming home for lunch?" Mary asked. I looked at the time and realized that I should have brought something to eat. "Yeah," I said. I lost track of the time, but I'll be right there, I promised. I locked up, drove back to the apartment, and Mary put a plate of leftover barbecue in front of me before sitting with me. "Thanks, Mary," I said. "You've got a lot to do with the kids. I appreciate you taking the time to make sure I'm eating." She nodded. "The kids are a handful, but I can still see to meals between making sure they haven't discovered fire on their own." I chuckled at that. "How are things going?" I asked. I'd heard from Mike. I assumed Mary had gripes too. "We're doing okay. Mike's stressed about money, but with you here, we'll be able to get the house together and that'll help," she admitted. I nodded. "I'll help with bills too, just like before. I don't intend to let you two pay for everything." "Well, we could use a little extra help with the groceries," she told me. That was troubling. If they were cutting corners on food, money was more than tight. "How bad is it, Mary?" I asked quietly. "It'll be okay once I can get back to work, but I can't do that right now. We can't afford daycare until I'm back to work, and I can't go back to work and leave the kids alone. We could probably pay for it once we're in the house, but we're probably going to have to wait until next month before we can get in there." "Maybe not," I said lightly. "If you can hold out another couple of weeks with the kids, Mike and I can get a lot done. I'll take some time in the evenings, starting tomorrow, but tonight, once Mike gets home, you and I are going for groceries on my tab." She nodded. "The past few months have been pretty rough." "Damn it. Why didn't you guys say something?" I blurted. "I've been sitting on money that you could have used to get the house in order. We're family, Mary. When I needed someone, you were both there for me. You had to know I wanted to be here for you." She looked ashamed, but nodded. "I know. I wanted to, but Mike had it in his head that we still needed to be strong for you. He worries a lot about you. He thought you'd start to worry that things were worse than they are. He didn't want you to worry that home was in trouble." I nodded. "Okay," I said, thinking about the problem. "What do we need?" "What do you mean?" she asked. "We need to get the kids into daycare. Are there bills to catch up on?" I asked. "A few, but nothing alarming," she admitted. "Tomorrow, we'll go enroll the kids so you can get back to work," I told her. "That's good for you too. It has to be hard having no time away from them." She nodded. "You'd be willing to do that for us?" she asked, uncertainly. "Mary, you guys are my family," I told her. "When Sabrina died, you took me in and brought me with you when you moved here. You didn't have to, but you made a commitment to keep me with you. If I can toss a couple of bucks on the pile to help get your new home set up, then I'm glad to do it. I'll bring my checkbook and we'll get the kids enrolled right away. We're going to go shopping for everything you need tonight." "Okay," she said quietly. I was getting a clearer picture of what was going on. Mike's irritation that she wasn't back to work yet made more sense in light of the money problems. When lunch was finished, I hugged her and the kids and went back to work. I was still at it when Mike stopped in on his way home. "Looks good," he said, taking a glance at what I'd accomplished. "I think we're going to be able to move in at the end of the month," he said optimistically. I thought that was overly ambitious, given that we still had so much work to do. "I'll do what I can to get everything done," I told him. "There's still a lot to do, though." "Not to worry," he said. "Let's go eat, and then we'll come back and tackle some more." "Not tonight," I said. I promised Mary that I'd go for groceries with her. He didn't look happy about that, but nodded. "She knows what we need to get," he said. I nodded. "Then tomorrow, we're taking the kids to enroll in daycare. Once she's back to work, I'll be here morning, noon, and night." "We can't afford daycare until after we move in here," he said, irritated. "She knows that." "So do I told him. "I'm paying the deposit and whatever they need in fees tomorrow," I told him. "I'm buying the groceries tonight too. So if there's anything you want in goodies, write it down." "Pete, that's too much," he argued. "Mike, this house is home for me too," I told him. "You guys are my family. It hurts that you haven't been telling me that things are tight. I could have helped. I wanted to help. If you need to pay it back down the road, I guess that's okay, but like I said to Mary at lunch, you guys brought me with you when you moved here. You didn't have to do that, and I was grateful that you did. Now it's my turn to pay you back a little. Spend the evening with your kids, let me fill the kitchen, and then tomorrow, we'll get the kids into daycare so things can get back above water for you." He nodded and pulled me into a hug. "Thanks," he said softly. "It's been kind of eating at me, you know?" "Yeah," I said. "I could kind of hear it in your voice yesterday. Mary's been under the same stress." Once she's back to work and the money is coming in, you guys will probably start feeling more like having sex again. Did she mention that? He asked. Nope. You're the only one who brought it up. She might have been putting you off because she was afraid of getting pregnant again. You can't handle more kids right now. He nodded, and I could tell that this was a huge weight off his mind. We went home and had a simple dinner of mashed potatoes and sausages before Mary and I said goodbye and took her car to shop for what she thought we could use for the week. I start back to work on Monday, she told me as we shopped, each of us filling a cart. I called the clinic this afternoon, and they were glad to hear from me. They have another hygienist going out for surgery at the end of the month. It's sort of perfect timing. If we'd waited until we were out of the apartment, I might have had to look somewhere else or take part-time. I'm glad I could help, I said, meaning it. We stocked up on a lot of staples that she said they were low on and managed to spend an obscene amount at the Walmart Supercenter. We brought the groceries home and put them away, Mike shaking his head at the amount that we'd bought. It was a good feeling to give back to them after all they'd done for me. I still wanted to kick Mike for not telling me about the problem in the first place, but we were past that now, so I was happy to just let it go. It took all of an hour for us to get the kids into daycare, and they took them right away. They fussed at first, but soon they were socializing with the other kids, and we were mostly forgotten. I got a big hug and a kiss on the cheek for doing this, and when we got home, we both changed and went to the house to work. Mary was capable of helping some, but mostly she swept up while I did the work. She hadn't seen the house since the renovation started, and she was amazed at the progress. I started to spackle the kids' rooms so they'd be dried enough to sand by the weekend. I still needed Mike's help to put the sheetrock on the ceilings in the other rooms, and then we could work on them too. I thought that we could start painting next week, and suddenly, the job seemed like it was attainable. We had a pleasant lunch and then went back to work. I had the kids' rooms ready for sanding once things dried, and we started to work on other things that I thought the two of us could handle. We want to get the kids at the end of the day, and then Mike and I spent the evening on the things that she couldn't handle with me. That was the pattern for the rest of the month. I'd work at the house day and night. Mike would join me in the evenings while Mary picked up the kids. I made sure to be home in time to make dinner for all of us so Mary didn't have to, and the weekends were Mike and I all day. We managed to get the house ready enough to move in at the end of the month. There were still things that we needed time to finish, but those could be handled a little at a time. For example, my room was still bare sheetrock. It was spackled and sanded, but we'd skipped painting it in favor of getting the rest of the house ready to move in. We also hadn't touched the basement, which Mike had wanted for a game room, bar, and TV room away from the kids. Those were projects that we handled over time, but we managed to make the big deadline, and that took even more pressure off of Mike and Mary. Now that the panic was done, I started living a little. I started going out during the days, searching for a job locally, but also trying to keep my commitment to success, as Sabrina had put it. I got a few nibbles from prospective employers, but nothing that amounted to much. They were looking for someone with more experience in the field. I had a year of operating and installing system automation in high-tech homes and a year in IT here in town, but the job market was turning into a depressing game of employers asking for top-tier talent and offering pennies on the dollar for what they were going to make off of our work. Dear listeners, the next part of this story will be released soon. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.